Let's take a look at a beautiful trap from the Queens Gambit Accepted. This opening starts with d4, d5, and c4. And we're going to be looking at the accepted variation, which is d takes. The best move and the most popular move is e3, to which black can just develop with knight f6. We take back the pawn, and if black tries to fianchetto with g6, we can continue developing with knight f3. They fianchetto. And here is where we can start the tricky moves with queen to a4 check. Now, there are numerous different defenses to this check. There's c6, knight c6, bishop d7, blocking here, blocking with the queen. But we will look at the ones that do not work. The first response is knight to c6. However, this loses to knight to e5. Attacking this knight on c6 as well as the pawn on f7. If they choose to block with bishop to d7, well, knight takes f7 forks the queen and the rook. A different response that also loses would be, rather than knight to c6, bishop to d7, attacking the queen, and this loses to queen to b3. And now this attacks the pawn on b7 and the pawn on f7. If they try and castle to guard the pawn on f7, which is the more important one, we are not going to take on b7 because this has no long-term winning line. Instead, we're just going to continue pressuring with knight to e5, and this is favorable for white due to the pressure on f7 and the bishop. Now, the third response that we're going to be looking at after queen to a4 is knight b to d7. And this has a beautiful winning line for white, which is to sacrifice the bishop on f7. If they take back, we're going to bring in the knight with knight to g5. And now black has three responses: king to e8, king to f8, and king to g8. King to e8 loses due to knight to e6. The queen is trapped and the bishop is under attack. King to f8 loses due to the same move, knight to e6. This time it's even with check, so we can force the capture of the queen. And finally, king to g8 also loses, and in fact, black gets checkmated in 4 moves in this line after queen to c4. And now all the escape squares are guarded, and the best black can do is guard for another couple of moves before getting mated on f7. Now, the final response that we'll look at after queen to a4 is knight f to d7, bringing this knight in to block. However, this also loses due to the same bishop sacrifice, which allows us to bring the king forward. We saw that if the king goes back, again, this loses due to the lines that we just saw. And if they try and step forward to f6, we're going to play queen c4, just like last time with the g8 mate. And now we're threatening queen to e6 and queen to f7. If black is really brave and still continues to capture material, bringing their king out in the open, we're going to play e4 with a discover check with our bishop. And now if they go back, we're going to play e5. And it's important to note that the queen is guarding all these escape squares here in e6 and f7. And really all black can do is sacrifice the knight. But even then, the king is just so exposed. Computer recommends knight to c3, and the position is +8 for white. It should be a pretty easy win after queen to e4, castles, and rook to e1, bishop to f4, or just f4. All of these options win for white, and it should be a pretty easy checkmate in the future. Thanks for watching.